Hey everybody, welcome back to Inbox Academy. Today we're going to talk about emojis in email because I think a lot of people have questions about, should you use them? How many do you use? Are there like restrictions or parameters there?
Personally, love emojis. I mean, if they're done right? I have seen emojis done horribly, like, 5, 6 of them in a subject line and just everywhere in an email. And I'm like, oh, they've overdone it. But if it's done right, I love emojis because I think it can break up the text and it can kind of like, you write emails to be skimmable and we love bullet points and quick sentences, right? And you can draw people's attention to those specific lines with some very tastefully done and placed emojis. So I love them, but there's also different, right? Like different types of businesses that it works and different types that it doesn't.
Yeah, I think we both agree, like in
Mhm.
moderation, for sure. And there are going to be certain brand voices that you can lean really heavily into emojis, and there's going to be certain brand voices that it's
Mhm.
not so appropriate for, right? And it depends a little bit on your audience too. So thinking about, is this going out to a Gen Z audience or is this going out to baby
Mhm.
boomers, that might be a little less inclined to know or even understand what emojis you're putting in there. You think of some of the classic ones, like I think Gen Z now uses the
Mhm.
the skull as like how millennials
Yes.
use LOL. And so those two things aren't going to land properly if the audience doesn't understand it, right?
And that also goes into like, knowing your audience. For me, an example would be I write a lot for B2B. So it doesn't really go with a lot of brands and voices, like their voice to use an emoji. They're, very technical terms, even for a lot of B2B that I write emails, not by my choice, but by what the client prefers. It can feel even a little dry, the language that's very direct, but it's very technical. And a lot of just to give you some context, a lot of the B2Bs that I do for, they're like platforms that offer services for customer service or for mental health or different things like that, like different platforms they offer to other businesses to navigate theirs. So hopefully that didn't confuse you, but the point is they like the technical heavy terms. They want you to read an email as a business owner and understand what they're offering you. So there's not a place that just doesn't make sense to have emojis. It's too playful. It's a very professional setting. In these specific, there are going to be some B2B that you can sprinkle some emojis in, and it's appropriate for
Mhm.
the brand voice. But I think just to recognize there's going to be some that it's not for. I'm sure you see in your realm,
Yeah.
Audrey, with more of the e-commerce and B2C, there is a lot more room for
Yes.
emojis.
Yeah, especially
Mhm.
personal brands. You think of that having that very personal voice where it really feels like this person sat down and wrote an email to you, or even that they're at the level of texting you, right? And that's where you would use a lot of emojis in a text and stuff. And so that can really come through with that personality. And I think we touched on earlier, but the other thing that emojis are really great for is kind of breaking up the visual of the text. And because it can be daunting in a way to receive an email that's just
Yeah.
like this big block of text, right? And there's certainly ways to break that up with the text itself, just adding white space, right? Breaking up the paragraphs into smaller paragraphs and things like that. But emojis are also
Mhm.
really good for that because you can take what, could be a bulleted list and instead use emojis as those bullets, and it can bring just a little bit of color, just a little bit of fun in there.
Moderation is key. Like that is, you can overdo anything. And I feel like right now emojis are being overdone, especially the subject and preview line, which is part of an email. So I feel like we need to just bring a little light to that. And there's also best practices with emojis when it comes to your emails being these emails that are being sent being redirected to spam. That, it could be a big spam trigger to have a ton of emojis in your subject line. So when I use an emoji in a subject or preview line, I usually pick one or the other, the subject line or the preview line. And I usually pick one. And sometimes I can get away with 2, I feel like,
Mhm.
but I try to, again, make sure it's balanced and kind of minimal. And it does feel more effective when you don't have like a line of like 10 emojis in your subject line, you know?
Yes, definitely, and too many emojis can be that spam trigger, so definitely watch out for that, in specifically in that subject line.
All right, that's it. That's our talk on emojis. Just make sure you use them in moderation if you're going to use them, and make sure it matches the brand and the voice of who you're writing for. So, if you want to see more content like this, make sure you hit subscribe. And if you want to check out any of our emails and how we use emojis, make sure you jump on our email list. You'll find the link below. Bye, guys.